and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. Hello there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to this galactic update here with me today. There's a new energy wave happening, coming, influxing our planet at this time, influencing every bit of life here. So I've talked about this in my previous updates, as well as one of my latest blogs, which talked about this new wave of galactic proportions. So today here in our beautiful mountain portal, we had like this intense weather shift. It's been happening all week, but all of a sudden I came home from running and I was standing there in front of the window, and wind started making this intense spiraling movement. It was so intense that branches started falling off, and actually it came all the way down to my window, and this never happened before since me living here, so it's pretty intense. And the energy has been putting so much pressure on our bodies. Although these are gradual changes for us, they're happening step by step, but we're still each feeling them in a unique way. So perhaps for some of you it might feel easier, for some of you it might feel more tense or intense, but it's actually happening the way it's supposed to. There's a bigger plan. So as I was running today, I had like this feeling, you know, how on this bigger scheme of things, everything is beautifully unfolding, right? So in this today's update, I wanted to talk about some of the topics that I was kind of putting on hold and reserve. If you want to know more about this energy wave, please read the major update on my blog. It's called Diary of the Ascension Pioneer. But most of all, I want to talk today about the seeding of this planet, because this week we've actually watched 2001 and 2010 as a sequel Space Odyssey movie, and I'm actually I wasn't able to believe, you know. I was like, why didn't I see this movie before? I felt so old the first time watching that, and I always kind of had it on my list. But you know, things happen, and especially for me in my life, when messages come in divine timing. So now I have much more understanding and guidance in my galactic you know, mission, to be able to comprehend and see the tiny little details in these things. So when I watched the first part, I was like, you know, and then we watched the second part and I was super excited. I love the movie so much. There's so many messages inside there. So if you haven't checked it out, please go watch now. It's an old movie, but old movies, what started happening in the 70s, sometime around, they really started bringing this new wave of energies, you know, people channeling, people remembering, people putting these pieces of the puzzle together, sometimes in metaphorical ways. There's a lot of information in science fiction, fiction or fact movies. So in that movie, you know, because the first part begins with showing the Homo sapiens, and then you have this monolith, right? I don't want to spoil anything to anyone who hasn't seen it yet, although I'm sure most of you probably have, because it's so old. But it has this monolith, and it influences the human race at every pivotal juncture point, right? So the whole idea behind this movie is the seeding of us as a species through an intergalactic exchange, if I can call it like that, through benevolent beings who are like forefathers, who are like the creationists, right? So who are the creationists? A lot of this is already shared in the Dolores Cannon books. I've shared this with you many times, but I've been mostly really you know, I was like excited because I thought, how do people not see these things, you know? Why do we always say evolution, right? Because first it began with the Neanderthal beings, and then all of a sudden, you know, it showed beings already exploring the space, and you know, you have to have the ground covered, and this is usually when the races start to evolve, when they have their internal problems you know, almost like fixed. Although in the second part it wasn't really so, because they were at war. So United States and Russia were at war with each other, so it wasn't like always completely to that. It's just like to the development where you are able to take care of yourself and the basic needs, then usually the beings start to lift up and catapult into the space exploration. I'm not usually such a fan of that, of this astronomy. It's pretty exciting. It is, in a way. But there's another part that you know, a part of us that knows that this is the void, and so many accidents can happen there, and there's never any question that could be able to be put into perspective. It's like clearly answered to, you know, to its finality. And what's happening is that when we look at this, right, it feels so mysterious, and it feels scary sometimes, right, even, and we don't see that there's elements of us that connect with those pieces, right? The great astronauts, who were they? You know, who were the first explorers? You know, we think, well, we got it covered, but where did this really begin, right? And why is this seeding, and why is it happening at certain juncture points? You know, with this evolutionary theory versus creationism, is we always, as human beings, we go to the extremes of duality. This or that. This is right, no. If that is not right, then this is right. But in truth, both apply. So we have evolution, plus we have the seeding. Because in the true nature of Source, there's always this divine intelligence, and that for me is Source. And beings who we consider as creation gods, they're no, in any other way, not of Source. So they are divine in nature. It's just how much they develop this potential of divinity and to exploration and understanding of cosmic wisdom and the cosmic creation principles, right? Everything that makes life possible. Recently, I also, after that, I watched, because this was created after the story, what was his name, Arthur Clarke? I'm not sure, I hope I didn't get it wrong, wrong, sorry, I'm really tongue-tied today, but there was this exploration into this equation, right? The equation of Source and how it creates. And we have this variable, you know, with the fractals. I think it's called the Mandel set. So, you know, how this tiny little equation describes everything, how everything is always in the making. So you have a big piece of certain artistry, and when you go zoom in, there's another, you know, it's almost like a replica there. It's just tinier, right? And it can amplify and multiply into infinity, right? So there's so many things that were given to us, and yet not everything was fully understood. So when I was watching the movie, I actually remembered something back in 2013, which is where a lot of my own awakening started, a little prior to that, basically in 2010. But in 2013 was the year of my major activations. It went throughout the whole of 2012, and you know, so many sets of these light activations. And what this means when I say that is, I've seen beings, I've had sounds, I had things done to my body that were actually preparing me to be and to start this mission, you know. And some of the things were planted in me that, you know, they're sprouting in their own divine timing. But I'll never forget, I had this dream, and I woke up from it, and you know, I can tell apart the dream. It's like astral dreams, just, you know, traveling, all this confusion, not really my thing. And then you have these dreams which are like so vivid, and you know they're not astral. You recognize them, like there's aspects of you that really felt and lived that. It's a different feeling. And when I woke from that dream, at first I thought, oh, it was visitation or something. Then after watching this movie, it's a deeply activating movie, I had this memory, wow, it was actually a memory. I had this information right away that it was a memory. It was a memory of me leaving and preparing, and how, you know, then I came here to be with this planet at this time. It was actually, I was seeing, you know, like through those virtual reality videos and one of those supercomputers that many extraterrestrial beings, evolved beings have on their ships, spaceships. They have everything recorded they need to have as a memory, as a database collection for their own personal recollection when they need it. So I remember I was looking at the screen, and I was shown everything, and it was about Earth and human species. I saw different statues and eras, periods, you know, in time, and different books and stuff, you know, just things. And I was like, what am I seeing? Because back then I always started my journeys with this prism of life. It's like it opened up, and there was like this kaleidoscope mandala opening up, and I think that's very much related to this fractal equation, right? It's how you enter into the space of the knowingness. And you can see that in the movie The Space Odyssey, when the astronaut who's, you know, he's triggered by this monolith, he's taken to this reality. He goes there, although the beings, the extraterrestrials, the creators are not shown, but it's about them, and he's taken to this journey of seeing the realms, everything in the universe, how everything's created. It's beautiful, all the colors. It's amazingly done for those years, I think. There was something similar in Star Trek. I've only seen so far. I have to go back on track and watching, but I've seen the first part of Star Trek movies, and it shows something similar, and then you go back to the source computer, right, of the source of the divine intelligence and how everything is created. So the astronaut was remembering, he was getting activated, then he died actually, but then he was rebirthed as a star child. And at the end of the first movie, you can see him like traveling, right? He was in the bubble in this beautiful ovoid of light, and he was like facing Earth, you know. And then the second movie, there's a lot of messages for Earth, and then you have, it's almost like what it looks like, the ascension of Jupiter and different things, many messages. And he said like, wow, he was giving messages through time and space. And he kept saying something beautiful, something majestic, something amazing is happening. And today, as I was running, I felt the same thing, this excitement, because a lot of us know this. We've been there. We come from these realms where the truth is known on a much bigger scale than most humans perceive it at this time. And we came as messengers, and we came as those starborn beings. And I remember during that dream, the first part, right, was that me watching that scream. It's almost like I was being prepared. I was giving information about this planet and everything. And then I saw there were these beings, but they were like light beings, yes, they're super tall. It's my memory of myself as well. And I was lying like that on my hip, and this beautiful, it felt like a feminine energy being was caressing me, and it was a long kind of a scene, and she kept repeating in my ear, don't ever forget your princess, don't ever forget. And when I woke up, I was like, what is this? What kind of princess? I don't get it. But then when I remembered after seeing the movie, it was actually, I was giving this information that I was a memory, a recollection of me leaving, because I was saying goodbye. And those of us who are starborn, we never actually fully leave. Part of us is always there. Hard to explain this, because it again deals with the nature of how evolved we are in dealing with our energy and dispersing it multidimensionally. So we send aspects of ourselves, and they told me a while ago, you know, they said, we've chosen the best ones to get this job done, because it is all about this mission at this time. So at the end of the first movie, I was really recollecting this. Yes, you know, you get this memory back, like full memory, what's really happening in the bigger scheme of things, and then you go back. So there's a lot of messages, I think, that we're announcing the coming of the star beings, of the starborn beings who do know, who do remember, who do know what's happening. We don't always know how to explain it with words like this is going to happen as events, but as cosmic proportions, right, that kind of thing. We kind of have that knowing. So remember that creation and evolution go hand in hand. There was a need to mix up the interbreeding, right, which was the usage of the bodies that would develop to inhabit Earth. First it began with the bodies that they've developed with the Neanderthal human, right, and then that human evolved. And then we have the, what's called, oh, I don't know now, but there's different species that's kind of like a subsequent of that. But there was always a mixture. There were these different stellar projects that were meant to elevate creation further when there was interbreeding, and there was many different influences and much DNA that was brought forth from different places. And what that caused was this union, right? And I talked about this in my video. I think it was in winter time when I talked about this, you know, this volunteer soul and what we bring through the terrestrial and extraterrestrial blending of the DNA. It's kind of like a really beautiful experiment. But Dolores talks about that as well in her books, the information she received from many of her clients in her hypnotic regression work. So seeding of life forms was very much necessary, and we wouldn't have certain forms on this planet right now. For example, certain types of crystals, the majority of crystals. So it's different realms that were seeded here so that everything could be, it's almost like a living library, right, as Palladian share, right? And everything was brought here. And we still don't always know that. It's kind of like we've forgotten the roots, we've forgotten the origin. The majority of humans do not know. Those of us who are here remembering, and we're getting activated through this, through the sparkles and seeds of life and the true origin. So it was developed. So when you're looking at certain crystals, it's from the crystalline realms, because it has a certain component that was only existing there, and it was brought forth in these it's almost like spaceship laboratories, and then it was placed here, you know, for the purposes of what we might use them. And a lot of humans are remembering now what they need to use them for. So it's kind of like everything, even though it evolves through time, at a certain points we did not know, it's like the influence of that grew in a spiraling movement that only the great life force knows. And the life force shows those, so this is what I call the great spirit, it shows those, there's like this pieces and nuggets, those beings who are truly pure at heart, and they know what's happening. So it's kind of like giving you clues, and it's nudging you, right? So this is happening when you're beginning to evolve your galactic memory. A lot of these things that were developed were, they were to create the crystalline grid at that time, and it was kind of like being created again gradually, right? So it was such a vast project. It's such a vast, it's not even a project, it's such a beautiful creation, I would say. And we still don't know, and we all hold pieces of that understanding, so together we're like dreaming that up into becoming a part of this reality yet again. So you can see, you know, you can see the crystalline grid when you when your inner vision is purified. How I see it is, and you can see it the same way, is perhaps if you're lying down in nature and you look up the sky, you can notice the tiny little sprinkles, right? You're gonna, if you're looking just like this, eye focused only on the sky, you're gonna see like this tiny little dancing sparkles of light, and you can tune into that as a crystalline grid. Okay, and you can attune yourself to the crystalline grid. So what's happening now with this ascension, I always tell you, is that the planetary life force began to increase, and your life force is increasing, and that's why it no longer works, and I've shared this repeatedly so many times, no longer works to just intellectually tune into this or what's happening or read books. It's time to get out there. It's time to connect with the uprising of the life force, although at times it's challenging because it's creating such changes for our bodies that at certain times we're like, oh no, what just hit me? You know, can I get out of this? It feels like it's a wave after wave after wave, and some of them are bigger proportions, some of them feel a little easier, but nonetheless, it's still a gradual process. That in no way means that the intensity of the energy at large is not, you know, like jaw-dropping, because it is intense. It's just that it's gradually descending here as you're feeling it. So it's almost like when I always tell you that we're actually uplifting our bodies, we're ascending the body. It's like, feels like so many times our soul is already there. It's just like we're patiently waiting, not waiting passively, but we're waiting and creating along. We're creating that change through very much patient nurturance of that, you know, kind of body change, drastic metamorphosis. It's almost like a mutation. But it's not like something that a lot of people perceive, well, it's happening now. It's been happening. It's like I said, it's of cosmic proportions. And it started since the beginning. When we say, well, is the divine experiment or a source, you know, is it just aimlessly shooting itself, or is it just like this wandering energy, what it's all about, or does it have purpose? Life force is encoded, great spirit, it's like the divine direction. You know, when you yourself can feel you're part of that, you're always going to know, you know, your next step. You're like in such clarity. It's like the energy wants to move you here, although a part of you might say, oh no, but I need to finish this and this and that and these projects. You know, the intensity of the new energy is not in intensity itself, but why it feels intense, I've repeatedly said that, is because there's so many things we haven't let go of in a bodily way. So many people hold on to things they think they need to do and create and be a part of, and it's just old. And because the energy wants to just shower you through with that blessed divinity, a more natural, a higher vibratory space and elevate you there, but you're still kind of resisting. That's why you feel this intensity. And a lot of people feel that. So it feels kind of like push and pull. And whenever there's push and pull, there's something in the background for us to dissolve and come into awareness with, okay? So I want to talk now about this DNA lineages that were a part of this creation because of this galactic interbreeding. The results of the galactic interbreeding with crossbreeding, we're all of one source, right? But when you imagine that there's different suns who shine with different magnitudes, and life being a part of a certain, let's say, solar system, or a certain part of a stellar system, whatever, a certain part of origin holds its own evolution in itself. And because everything is so vast, right, we feel like it's in this void, and yet it's so vast. It's interconnected, and yet it's kind of working on different hues and tones. And so when these experiments were done, they were never like fully known to the degree, well, this will happen, or that will happen. You mix two different types of beings even, right? One has these color of eyes, one has different, what will come out, right? You know, we can guess. And there's a certain kind of adjustments we can make in our guessing, but as well, there's something unpredictable here in this. So this DNA crossbreeding brought many variations that were a part of what was needed, these variations, so that life could become so multiverse, so expanded. And yet the terrestrial DNA and ET DNA in certain cases had good results, and certain not so much. So what was really at the forefront was, okay, how do we improve that? How do we enhance that? And for me personally, when I tune into that, it's so much can be altered through working with life force, so working with spirit. In the legend of the Star Crash from Dolores Cannon, there's this example with beings who came here to this planet, not purposefully, but somehow it was a part of the experiment and an accident, and they landed here, and our sun was too bright for them, and it was actually almost like radioactive for them. So they had problems, you know, with skin exposure. They could get, you know, certain, like, you know, we get cancer now if we go out and expose ourselves to the sun. So what's happening is these problems with adjusting, they were slowly being kind of like, they were dissolving through this crossbreeding, so that there would be a strengthening of the DNA pool. But we never were fully predictable, right? This was never fully predictable. So when you look at the nature of what happens now with these, what we call certain genetic diseases, right, or autoimmune diseases, which, you know, is your body starts to attack the healthy cells as well as what you perceive as unhealthy and disease and foreign to your body. These diseases also became as a part of certain crossbreedings. So certain skin or digestive issues, things like that. Recently someone asked me about this, and the person said, well, I have to eat these kind of foods because I have this DNA, and supposedly this DNA needs that kind of food. You know, like people talk about blood types. How much of that is true and how much of that is a belief? Well, what I'm being shown is, again, working with life force will elevate us, because when there's people who want to become lighter and they want to move into ascended diet, and they don't want to eat meats at all because it's so low in frequency, and it's not being done through ahimsa, which is the compassionate reverence for all life in creation, and they feel it kind of like you know, kind of like dispersed. They feel torn between, I want to do this, I want to grow, but, you know, they say this, or I need this because I have this DNA, or I have this disease, so I need to eat this. And there's, in many people, this division. And again, remember, with each division you feel within yourself, remember the simple basic rule, which is, it's not about this or that being right, but how do I merge this? So what's happening, and I'm telling you this again, is this light being, this higher celestial attunement self, is descending into our form. And if we don't allow it, nothing will happen. At the same time, you think, I'm ascending, but I'm so holding on to the ideas and beliefs I have about my physical body, then you forget what ascension is really about. It's about the upliftment of your physical body. So I'm always so fascinated about the DNA, the component of the DNA, because everything is DNA, right? How much do the light being DNA and the physical being DNA, how much do they crossbreed in terms of which one will prevail? Because in certain beings, again, that's not, you can predict it, right? It depends on the soul evolution. So more evolved souls have become magicians in how they know how to alchemize their bodies. So even if they came into bodies that had more, I don't know, they were more prone to certain types of diseases, they still were able to kind of like translate the energy, to adapt and adjust the energy to function on higher vibratory rates. Well, there were certain beings who were so, it's almost like predetermined, you know. It's, again, what's there? Is it predeterminism, or is there evolution? Are you always expanding and evolving? Again, try to see both sides of the story. So if you find yourself in any of these cases resonating with this, and you have those issues yourself, and you think of yourself as a soul, and you say, my soul has a long lineage of galactic proportions, and then you say, well, but my human body's like this, and it limits me in this way. Well, Ascension is the liberation from that which you perceive it can, in a way, inhibit you, right? So you're thinking, well, I have this autoimmune disease, which means I have to be like this and like that. Our light DNA, your soul, and through this acceptance of yourself and working with the life force energy and the ascending life force of the planet as well, then you will evolve yourself to the next level. Because again, remember, we're evolving the bodies. This is not just mental. This is not just spirituality. Did you think it's something having to do with your beliefs or faith, or, you know, it has nothing to do with that. It's a life birthing itself on a level that can become for you fully free, liberated from anything. And when you have a vaster array of the understanding and more of this incorporated in the galactic proportions of your galactic DNA, and the role that DNA itself plays, not just the spiritual knowledge and beliefs and certain truths, you know, that's kind of like you build the house, but then you also have to have a memory, an understanding of your body and its heritage and the ancestry of the body, which is beyond just this planet Earth and the Terran origin. So do we really need that, you know, this and that? And what is true when we think of the nature of our bodies and the predisposition of it, and certain DNA types we say, or certain genetic lineages? Think of the way, how you view yourself, how much of yourself you still view yourself as predeterministically, and how much through the ascension, through the ascended view, that you're always free. You can change your body, you can alter the genetic structure of your body. But people say, well, thoughts create. Thought is a tiny little speck, right, within the light, which is vast. And people say, well, then what creates, right? So the bigger thought, the bigger thought behind it, it's actually that union, the union with the true nature of creation and the divine principles. Because no matter how much you can be mentally open even to new ideas and whatever it is, but you still don't understand how creation works, and you're not unified with creation principles. That's why so much of my work is to share the truth of these creation principles, so that people can tune into that and become naturally rebirthing themselves, become naturally attuned to life as it was supposed to be, through these higher laws, beyond death and stagnation and certain limitations of the DNA, even if there were certain experiments. And all of that was a game, was a play. But you yourself can become a magician of your immortal self, working with life force. And that's most of the reason, you know, why I developed the Tantrika Life Force Mastery course. So you can still get that. It's always available. And it's one of the longest and most profound courses I've ever created, and hasn't been out there so long. You know, I have courses that exist from way back, but I already got some beautiful feedback, you know, from people that did the exercises in it and did the practice, and they already started noticing results very shortly. So I invite you to consider taking the course, because it's with that work, with the work on life force, you can change anything in your reality. You will allow yourself, you will be pulled into that galactic pulse of light. You will work with that. You're going to become a creationist yourself. You know, I'm a part of the creationist group, and that's why I resonate so much with that, because people teach about, you know, spiritual beliefs that come as it's all source, there's no creation, this is just an illusion. Well, partially the limitations and the attachments we have to it, that's illusory. The creation, the experience of it is very real. And when you remember that, we're going to start to remember, that's when your DNA will open up to galactic DNA. Not just, I'm a human, I have this body, okay, I'm tuning into certain spirituality, even the enlightenment movement, whatever it is, but it doesn't end there for you, you know, it goes further and further out. And there's beings who hold that truth. And I have to update you on something here, which is basically what I was shown and I was guided to do, is create a few sketches for my Mission of Volunteer Souls and the Galactic Grand Design book that's coming up, but not yet. Sometimes people say, well, I can't wait to read your book, when is it coming? Or they're asking me. You don't know that until you know how to work with force. It's all for the force. Sometimes I can write, sometimes I don't, because it's not coming from the mind. It's like pulses, and sometimes my pulse will guide me to here and sometimes there, and I don't know how to explain it. It's not a rational thing. Even with what I was tuning into now with this major reset point, which I've talked to you about in this new shift, certain things that I thought I'll do now, they just kind of went out of my space, and I was like, what is this? And clearly I was shown that a lot of the times when we shift, we see a bigger perspective, and we're always shifting into see even bigger picture, bigger, more expanded, wider, right? That's our evolution with this ascension. So when you see it wider, you're perhaps going to see a real-time equivalent to what before you couldn't see it. So that's why it expanded, and because you expanded, you kind of don't feel things in the same way. It doesn't mean your guidance at first was wrong or false or, you know, projection. It just means you're expanding further out. So for me, it was the same with retreats. At first I thought, well, I'm going to do it this month, and then the energy just wasn't there, and I listened to that pulse guiding me. And sometimes there's people who are like, knock knock, when you're going to do this or that, you know, and I can't fulfill these demands through ego. I can't do these things because then it's false. It's not coming from the truth. It's not coming from the pulse of life. And all my work has now just shifted totally into this surrender to the pulse of life. And I've talked about this since this winter actually. And you can see the topics of my videos are dedicated to nothing but that. So when I was working and I was guided to work on these sketches, what came through is on the exact day of that new energy influx, which was most intense, I kept seeing this being, and that was after watching the movie 2001 and then 2010. And I was like, I need to paint this being. I need to paint this light being. And I was like, oh. And then I thought, but I don't like painting. I'm really not so much good with painting. I'm better with drawing. And I love pencils and color pencils and all those things. I'm like, why shouldn't I just draw it? And it was like, oh, such a huge way, of joy. And it was like an instant knowing, I got to do it now. It's, you know, nothing is in the future. I got to do it now. And it's actually one previous sketch I'll show you. The rest will be in the book, a part of the book, because I was actually shown that these sketches themselves have codes of light within them. It's not just the words. It's not about words at all in the book, you know. It is, because the majority of humans cannot telepathically translate, so we have to use words, and sometimes I feel very limited. I feel I have to work very hard to get that across, and people don't always understand. It's much easier to transmit that way, but most people do not believe we can do that, so they don't use it, right? You can use it with people that are more open, or perhaps in your family or your personal relationships. Sometimes I use it in my own energy dynamics, and it works. It really works. But sometimes with these greater proportions, people that just don't have the capacity to translate that level of divine information yet. So what came through was this beautiful light being, and I'm going to show you a little bit through the symbology that represents. All my work is about symbology and the energy coming through. It's not about the technique. Sometimes people go like, oh, you should do it like this or like that or correct that. No, you know, again, it's not about that, and you're missing the point. So there's this beautiful being that came through, and it's blue, of course, because Alcyon, super sun, is blue. So this being, right, that I hold here has the keys to the universe. Yeah. So what you can see here, right, is this pulse of light, is this constant tuning into this force, this parallel, the galactic consciousness. And this galactic consciousness is held, and you can see the top of the head merges directly with the galactic center of this being. So this being holds direct galactic stream of, you can't even call it knowledge, it's just ism, galactic ism. And here it comes through the alignment. You can see a cross and then a triangle. So this, it comes out looking like a star, but it's a different symbol than the 7-pointed star. It's basically a cross, so a star that's 4 through the cross, so it has 4 edges, and one has 3, which is the creatrix, the divine principle of triangulation, as you know, the creation. So this is that alignment, and then through that creation and that principle through which all is created, you have here these different colors, right? These are different origins of different suns. So like I said, different stellar bodies have a different magnitude, have a different pulsation, so they have different color because of that, right? Because of their magnitude. So you have blue, red, it's kind of like orangey, and then yellow, which is the magnitude of our own sun, the soul. So that could be our sun here. So here you see this alignment. It's all in beautiful alignment, and here through the spiral of life, right? Through the galactic consciousness here. And that alignment is what I've talked about, right? This alignment with the pulse of light, understanding of creation, how everything is structured, how everything flows through you and your galactic DNA, your galactic consciousness, right? And then this being has, it's like this ancient being, and it's, you can't see it here because it's a sketch, but how I see it is it's translucent. It's like translucent light, almost like a light prism, like light bluish and kind of silvery golden hue, and I wanted to present this. So here again is the spiral repeats itself, so the mission to telepathically communicate that through and talk internally and vibrationally about that attunement. And I was seeing like hair, it's not like our physical hair like this, and recently someone told me as well, when I've shared my dream and my remembrance with them, it's my friend, and she said to me, I remember this feeling, how I was looking into this body. I was like, what? I can't believe I have this body now, you know, on Earth. Because many of you probably have this memory of not being in bodies like this. So you were like, oh, the initial first shock, or just memory or recollection. And these hair are more like imagine light filaments, like filaments of light, which again translate the information, and it's like galactic antennas. So there's different spirals here as well, different galaxies, different galactic attunements. And this is the first sketch. There will be many different sketches, not just beings, but I wanted to show this because my book will speak about mostly this grand design, what it's about. How can you become more, you know, part of that through this cosmic remembrance? And if you want to go even deeper, I've created, I think maybe 2 years back, I don't remember, I think it was 2 years back, the Cosmic Convergence Workshop, which is a series of 5 videos in which it's all about these creation principles and everything there, all the principles. So you can read about that on my page. All the links are always shared down below. I think there's everything I wanted to talk about here. We are here to really just witness this incredible change that our bodies are going through in a very natural way. It's very organic, and I always say, you know, when you drop the force flows through you. So it's like we force things to happen sometimes, so you see the word forces in it, but the true force is that which works through us when we surrender that, you know, the constant controller. Even what we say, the witness, the observer, sometimes even that is not perceived in a, you know, expanded way enough. The witness, sometimes, you know, when we say, okay, just witness yourself, right? It's words or knowledge share that way, or certain, it's almost like guidelines have a magnitude. But then what you receive through them might not always be the thing itself, right? They want it to be a part of this bigger picture. So again, it's the awareness through which you perceive things or sentences or logical explanations or even spiritual truths that will filter that. And the more that is surrendered, and the more you allow this life force to come into you, to inhabit your body, it's not like you give in to someone else. No, because it's where we come from. It's that force. And beings who are attuned to that pulse of light, and I've showed you that being, they have this galactic consciousness and bigger understanding. So they influence realms. They help to create worlds with that beauty, with that love, with the understanding of the vastness of life in creation and how it comes through these creation principles. So much more you can find on my webpage. many different sections, even multidimensional courses. I love multidimensional Ascension course that I created. It's kind of big in terms of comprehension, but I think there's a few of you who are in a way ready for this kind of input and going deeper with your galactic activation. So I hope you're having a beautiful time. Take all the time you need right now to rest, replenish, be with yourself, be with the life force. You can't really do that always in just if you're just indoors. I always tell you, go out, just feel it, feel the shifts. You can be moved, you know. It's not just like that nature is beautiful. It is. But everything in nature is encoded. Everything we've created that's without this life force, that's like an artifact, right? It's artificial, does not have that impulse of light, does not have that divine intelligence in it. So when you're reading, when you're eating like organic foods, things like that have this sacred geometry within them, again, you're filling yourself with light. Pardon me again. So it is kind of challenging for me to talk today because I'm just still part of this wave. So if you're noticing me more like this, well, at least you get to witness me in all my different altered states. Because it's how the energy is. Different facets come out, and the integration now, it's pretty intense with this wave. We've had kind of like a intense weather change. It's very cold here right now in comparison to the heat wave that was in March. But again, it's a part of these changes, everything. We have to just be with what is and see things and see these greater visions that our galactic selves are showing us, because we're meant to share them with the world. And those of you who are volunteer souls, you know it, so you better show it. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned. There is much more coming in times to come, but I'm really gonna focus on my book now and doing the sketches, doing the writing, whatever. It's just like lots and lots of work. So when it's done, and it's how it is. The force knows. We trust that. And we trust that this pulse is just taking us to where we need to be and where we always are. I love you so much, as always, with so much wisdom and power and grace of the divine. Take care. Bye-bye.
So anyway, guys, it's a very pure and fresh energy after this new seeding. There's not a soul here in these mountains today, which is pretty amazing. It's not usually like this, but it's a beautiful day. There's no one here. It's just a mountain portal. The wind speaking this new life to me, to us. And it's pretty amazing what's birthing at this time. You have to feel and tune into your hearts. It's not going to be in the mind, in the proofs, and the whatever, but it really is a beautiful sparkle. Enjoy.